Hello, everybody, and welcome to this latest in the ValuesJam guest session series. Cindy, brilliant to have you here. And to start with, please introduce yourself and tell everybody about your great work.
Oh, thank you, Alan, so much for having me. I love a good conversation about values, and I'm just so excited to be here. Looking forward to the experience. So, I'm Cindy Smarsh. You can find me on LinkedIn at Cindy Smarsh, and my company is called the Kindness Principles. I am a workplace well-being expert that is striving to work with corporations to create a wellness first culture, people first culture, sometimes it's called, where we use kindness as a powerful business strategy, not just fluff, but actual strategy, intentional initiatives to create an environment where people want to come to work, they feel valued, they feel meaning behind the work that they're doing, and therefore creates greater productivity, less turnover, better retention, just an all around uplift and up level of people's people skills and so forth. So people want to stay at work. We in America, especially, Alan, I'm sure you know, we spend a lot of time typically at work. And what I've wanted to do is create a bigger impact in people's lives by creating a greater experience at work, because I believe one of the ripple effects is when people feel really good at work, they feel better when they're at home. So those relationships go better, the parenting goes better, the stress levels are down, the health is up. So that's what I am up to in the world. I'm a coach, a speaker, an author, a trainer, person, and that's what I'm up to right now.
That's great. And I've got a follow-up question for you because I'm guessing that some people who will be watching this will have listened to what you just said and would say, oh, those things that Cindy mentioned, they're what I usually refer to as either well-being or employee engagement. So what's
Yes.
the specific difference with kindness at work?
Well, I think the difference is that, the greatest drivers of loyalty is feeling seen, feeling heard, and feeling like you're having an impact with your work. And so it's not just let's engage with each other, it's a deeper sense of I belong here, I'm connecting here, and I matter. And so kindness is, I call it kindness, but it's not just let's all be nice to each other at work and, smile. And I mean, that's all great. But it's not just fluff. It's like actual business strategies to create that sense of well-being that you're talking about and increase engagement. That's absolutely part of it. And fine-tuning our communication skills, which we all can use more schooling in, of course, in our lives and in our work to create that experience. So I don't know if
Brilliant,
that
thank
answered
you.
your question, but
I could continue, well, we could continue to talk about kindness or kindness at work for ages, but well, that's not what we're here. So I'm
yeah.
gonna I'm gonna get you to help me choose a values jam card for us. So
Okay,
the
great.
first task is to choose a number, which is however many piles you'd like me to make of the deck.
Um, the number seven's coming up. Is that too many piles?
No, I've got space, so that's okay. So they're going to be different sizes. So that's five,
Okay.
6, and one more 7. So now 1 to 7, which pile?
Number two.
Number 2. Okay, let me just put these others away to one side. And so now you've actually chosen one of the smaller piles, and there are only 5 cards. So which number?
The number four has come
Number
to me
4.
first. Yep.
Okay, so this is what you've chosen.
Ooh, what else would a coach and counselor pick but clarity, right? That's
And
great.
and And the first question comes in 2 parts. So the
Okay.
first is kind of more theoretical. So what does clarity mean? And
Mm,
then there's a follow-up, more creative answer, what does it look, feel, and sound like? So, whichever takes your fancy to go with first.
Mm. Well, to me, clarity is that inner knowing. It's being clear. It's that knowing that something, um, which way to go, right? Clarity. It's like, am I this or am I that? Do I go to the left? Do I go to the right? Do I go up? Do I go down? Do I do this or not? Clarity is just that absolute knowing, that inner knowing, I guess I would say. And how does it feel? It, I think it can feel a lot of ways for people. When they're clear about a decision, for example, let's say someone has clarity about that they need to end their marriage. Okay? Let's just as an example. I think with that clarity will come some relief, right? Okay, I'm clear now. I have clarity. I know what I'm going to do. However, if it's something, a dramatic change in someone's life that they are now clear about, it can also be very um, um, cause disequilibrium, right? Like really shake them up, rattle their world, change. It's like, oh, now I don't know what my future's going to look like, or I don't even know what the next steps are. What do I do now that I'm clear I need to do this? What's one, two, three, four, five? Right. So it can be, I think, this combination of relief and a peace that can come over. But at the same time, if it's, again, something you're approaching a major decision or change, can also cause that stress because, of course, as humans, we're not great usually with the idea of change, even changes we really feel called to make or
Hmm.
want to.
And what about what does it look like and what does it sound like?
Mm. I think it sounds like certainty. I think it sounds like confidence. Um, Again, calm, peace, confidence, certainty. And what does it look like? I think it looks like, for me, clarity, when I feel clear, I feel a peace come over me. I feel very calm. And then I feel laser focused. It looks like focus, like, okay, now I know the direction I'm going. So just watch me. One, two, three, four, five, right? So I don't know. That's what comes to mind for me.
All right, well, let me start there where you finished because you mentioned the word focus. And when I asked you about what clarity looked like, and I was thinking about the same, I enjoy photography. And
Oh,
so I just thought of that moment when you
mhm,
get the subject right in focus, whereas previously it had been a little bit off.
mhm,
And it's great when you get a photograph back and you see that, for instance, you've got the eye of the animal just absolutely in focus. It really makes it. Whereas if it's slightly off, it's quite not quite right. Sound for me, I suppose the saying "as clear as a bell" came to mind. So for me, that
yeah.
chime of a bell. And what does it
Hmm.
feel like? I was really fascinated by what you were saying there about the different feelings, and particularly the example that you gave, because it it's like clarity is at a number of different levels. Because what you described was kind of saying that through clarity, you open up a whole load of stuff that's absolutely not clear. and
So true. Yes. Yes. Exactly.
And then when your answer to the question about the inner knowing and which way to go, what you made me think of is how in such a dynamic world that we live, how maybe clarity is less possible than it was previously. So if everything is stable around you, in a way, clarity is one easier and two hugely useful. But
Mm-hmm.
then I was thinking, but the world's not like that anymore. So, it's constantly changing. And
Mm-hmm.
so, in a way, I was wondering whether there's perhaps some limitation to having too much clarity in a world that isn't stable. So, what are your thoughts
Mm.
around that?
Oh, wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, I could see where clarity could feel limiting in that, if I feel clear that this is my life, I'm in my box, this is my life, even if I like my life, right? I may not look beyond it ever. And maybe I don't want to. Maybe that's okay. But sometimes we don't know what we're missing when we don't take a look, right?
Yeah. And
Uh,
actually, with you saying that,
mhm.
it's making me think about, there's a lot of division in the world, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it seems to me that that's often caused by people kind of digging in and using their current belief set or whatever it is. And if
Yes.
anything opposes that, the tendency is to resist and fight, right? It's like, I believe this.
Yeah,
And
standing up
they,
stronger in where they are instead of attempting to listen or to
yeah,
find common ground, maybe, or something like
yeah.
that.
So
Mhm.
that I guess that's a personification of what I was mentioning just now, where you might be very clear with what you think you believe, but unless you start to invite opposite opinions and really consider them,
Mhm.
how is anything going to get any better?
So true. So true. Another piece of that in our relationships may be really keeping other people in a box as well in our minds. In other words, oh,
Yeah,
Alan's like that. Alan
yeah,
always says that. Alan always does that. So Alan's Alan, and not, letting us continue to discover more about the people around us, or seeing their own ability to change if they wish. Or, by the way, I'm not suggesting you need to change, Alan. Yeah, Cindy came on my show, insulted me. But you get what I mean. Like, if, like, I have a brother and I've caught myself saying, oh, that's just how he is. Oh, we know what he'll say. Why even bother asking? I mean, things like that. And that's me kind of having made a decision about him, maybe based on lots of experiences, but not being open to, could he be
yeah,
different?
yeah.
So
I don't
that's
know whether
the
you've,
way it's
I don't,
limiting.
have you seen this? Like it's a diagram. So it's the corner of a room,
Mm,
and in the corner of the room, there's a cylinder, and there's a light being shone on the cylinder from the end, the round bit,
okay.
making a shadow on the wall opposite, which is a circle.
Okay.
And
Yes.
then there's also another light source on the side of the cylinder
Oh,
projecting onto the opposite wall, which makes a rectangle shape because
okay.
it's the side of the cylinder, right?
Right. Okay.
And so if you're standing in one position, you see a circle. And if you stand in
Oh.
another position, you see this rectangle. But
Oh
actually, the
yeah.
thing is a cylinder. And
Oh
so
yeah.
you've reminded me of that because
Wow.
we might each be very clear what we're seeing, but
Yes.
actually it's not that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. It's kind of like those photos. I'm trying to think of one, or pictures or whatever, that if you look at it one way it's a lady and you look at it the other way it's a
Yeah,
vase or something. And
yeah,
but no, it doesn't mean anyone's wrong, right? Which, whatever they're seeing. So that it's really interesting. Yeah, it just depends on your point of view.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I saw a nice little cartoon. It was I don't know what sort of dog it was. So let's say it was a Dalmatian, so a tall dog,
Okay.
and then a little terrier dog, and they both stood in a puddle which is about 6 inches deep.
Oh.
And the little terrier is saying, "Goodness me, this water's deep." And the Dalmatian's saying, "No, it's not."
Yeah, right. Yeah, so our different perspectives on everything, right? The puddle's
Exactly.
the same, but their experiences are really different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's keep with the positive side of clarity. Where have you noticed, or where have you experienced clarity? Can you think of a very practical example or time?
You mean in my own life or
Either
people's lives?
your either your personal experience or your professional experience, or perhaps it's something about somebody else.
Hmm. Oh my goodness. I mean, so many, many times. One of the things, this is what's coming right now. I just feel like I need to say it. Is, people struggle with decisions. A lot of people are people pleasers and say yes to things, even when they really want to say no. So when I'm teaching and working with people to live authentically, right? Live with clarity, right? And really act on that clarity. I'll say when you're presented with any choice or opportunity or decision, ask yourself, is this an absolute yes? Like, absolutely yes, I want to do this. Like, Cindy, do you want to come to Values Jam, do a Values Jam with me? Absolutely yes.
I
Clear,
remember. Yeah,
right? No hesitation, nothing. It was an absolute yes, right?
yeah.
Or we could have an enlightened no, where we thoughtfully consider something and we're really authentic and honest about whether we want to say no to something. That's an enlightened no. But what we get tripped up with as humans is we think if we're invited or asked to do something, it means we really should because we've been invited, or we're going to let somebody down, or somebody saw something in us that they thought would be good for this project or this organization or whatever. And so we say yes when we're inside, we're like, oh, I don't have time for this, or I'm overwhelmed, or I really don't want to work with this person, or, whatever it is, right? And so I think a nice place to get us to clarity about a lot of things is say in our minds, is this an absolute yes? Not a like, okay, yeah, I could do that, but an absolute yes, or is it an enlightened no? The other thing is that an enlightened no, if we feel bad when we say no, actually what we're doing is keeping the door open for someone who it would be an absolute yes for, right? If
Right.
I say no to being a
Yeah,
part of
yeah.
the team, then
What a
there's a
great way.
spot for that person who, when they get invited, are like, yes, that's an absolute yes for me. So it's not selfish to say an enlightened no. It's actually what's best for you is going to be best for everybody else. And that's clarity when you can live from that space.
I love that. And I actually, so when I say no, it's usually because I don't think I'm going to be able to do as good a job as I would like to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's often how I describe it to people and say, you're probably going to be able to get somebody else that's going to be able to do it better.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, and one other thing, Cindy, when right at the beginning of what you just described, and by the way, I love what you described there, but at the beginning you said, oh, something that's coming to me at the moment, I feel I have to say it. I loved hearing that because in Values Jam, and it took me a lot longer than you. You've only been on here for like 20 minutes and you're saying that. It took me quite a few Values Jams because there were things coming into my head and I was thinking, oh, that doesn't feel as though it's the right time. It's coming from left field or whatever it is. But then over the time, I've learned just let it go.
Yeah.
Um, and and I discovered that other people were doing the same. So in the end, I ended up speaking to a psychologist in New Zealand. And
Yeah.
what he said was that because values-based conversations go deep, what
Mm-hmm.
might be happening is that previously lapsed neural pathways are being reconnected. And that
Mm-hmm.
might be causing hidden memories to resurface. So
Mm-hmm.
people were saying, oh, this has just come to mind. I haven't thought of this for 15 years, and then say their piece. So it's just great that you had that kind of experience. For me,
Yeah.
clarity, I guess you might not be surprised at this, but values for me provides really great clarity. And I spent a long time developing and kind of nailing what I thought my values were and what they meant, and then translating them into behaviors and then paying attention to behaving like that. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, I feel like I'm streamlined. It just makes things so much easier.
Yes.
and
Yes.
it's clarity.
Yes, because either it aligns with your values or it
Or not
doesn't.
exactly that.
Right? End of discussion, right? It's just like, yes, it's crystal clear if
Yeah.
something aligns or it doesn't. Hmm.
So let's now go to the opposite side of the coin. So
Okay.
when have you witnessed a lack of clarity? You're going to say to me all the time.
Yeah, oh my, yeah, so much, so much, so much. Wow. I mean, I went through this myself. Probably the worst experience for me with lack of clarity was in my first marriage. I'd been married a long time. Well, actually, I hadn't been married a long time when I started to feel like, oh gosh, are we going to make it? Is this marriage going to be healthy enough for us to even keep it together? We had a couple kids, it's just yuck. You don't want divorce, but you don't want a rotten marriage, whatever. But then things got really, really bad. And like about the 18th year, 19th year, 20th year, I was feeling just, I was just spiraling down. I was just spiraling down. I was getting very depressed. I was very stressed. It was one of the busiest seasons of our lives too, because our kids were at an age where they were in every activity known to humankind. And so we were running around chasing our two kids, letting them do all these things and supporting them in that. We were both working full time and we were both in kind of high demand jobs at the time, and so many commitments. I was volunteering everywhere in the community, in the church, in the school, on top of it all, and going home to this highly lonely, tense marriage, and just could not figure out how to be healthy in the context of the marriage, but not wanting to dismantle it or break up our family. So I did. I swam in that space for a few years actually. Like, should I stay or should I go? Can we work it out or can't we? If we can't work it out, can I still stay? Can I manage myself enough to be able to be okay enough to stay? And just how I language that tells you that it's not a good idea, right? So, but I tried to convince myself that I could be happy enough. I could create my own personal, mental health on my own despite these dynamics, where I could make it work. I can make it work. And then the next day I'd think, I can't go another day, let alone 20 more years, I think I'm kind of babbling now, Alan. I'm sorry. But
No,
basically,
I,
that was for me like which
yeah.
road do I take? And I was in that space for years till
Do
I
you
took it.
know, when I was listening to you, I was thinking, wow, this woman is being so authentic and vulnerable to share a story like that on here. So thank you. Thank you for being that.
Mm-hmm.
But you've actually raised a question which this is not supposed to imply that it relates to what you just described, but
Okay.
it is about relationships and clarity, because I'm thinking of the pulls and the pushes that are going on in similar situations to you. So this is a kind of a bit of a cliche, but imagine a woman in an abusive relationship with children.
Oh yes.
And the woman at times will say to either her mum or close friends, I've got to get out because the guy is, whatever. And
Yeah.
then when push comes to shove, she has like, oh, but I'm breaking up our family and I don't want to do that. And then it's kind of, so you sit with the abusive relationship, or so what's that? Because it must be clarity. It's another one of these words actually that when you start to dig in, it's a whole lot more complex than if you say, oh, yeah, we should have clarity.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Because, like in the case of someone in the exact situation you've described, probably part of her thought process is it better for our children if I stay? Or
Yeah,
is it better for our children if I leave? Like,
yeah,
what are these children learning in this house? What are these children going to learn if we leave? Like, and they have to, so it's, yeah, I think a thought filled parent who's contemplating divorce is going to look far beyond their own coping to contemplate that decision and try to get to clarity. So,
mm,
and then to think about with that particular kind of situation, then there's what does religion say? What does the family say? What does culture say? What does mental health practitioners say? What does society say? And that can cause people's clarity to get all fuzzy, get all blurry, far blurrier than even a camera can be, right? Taking a picture of the animal or whatever.
yeah,
Just
exactly.
so
And I
fuzzy.
can relate to this personally because I was married as well. Um, and I feel blessed because we're both happier
Mm,
and we still get together with our kids and have like family occasions around either Easter or Christmas or something.
yeah.
And it was tough to do, but absolutely the
Yes.
right thing to have done. Um,
And isn't that great that clarity we can say isn't always easy, right? It's not easy, but yet it's rewarding. It can be
yes,
satisfying or rewarding. I don't know if that's the right word, but just how satisfying it must be to you and your ex that you can remain a family, a functioning family at some level with your children together, despite the fact that you could no longer be in a marriage relationship.
yeah.
I mean, that's
You're right. I
amazing.
went.
Way to go. Woo! Go team. Good job.
I went to a funeral a few years ago of somebody that was a friend where I used to live, and at the um, wake, is it called? Yeah, wake. Somebody said, "You know, you guys, you had wonderful children. They're all great, and this, that, and the other." And then she said, "And you even do divorce really well,"
You
which
guys
was
are
a
just
nice
knocking out
compliment.
everything. Break
So
up well. Stop.
in Cindy, in Values Jam, there's an opportunity for you to ask your own question about clarity. So, and then if you've got the answer immediately, please do share it. Or if you prefer me to go first, you can ask the question to me. So, a question about clarity from you, beginning with who, what, where, when, why, or how.
Okay. How do you get to clarity when you have, something you really need to decide on?
Okay, and are you going to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Oh, I want you to go first.
All right. So it's a bit of a shortcut because it's a piggyback on one of my previous comments about values.
Oh,
So I
good.
use my
Sure.
values as a lens for any situation where I need to make a decision. And then the other bit that complements that is I can turn up logic really high. And so I'm able to assess things really objectively using a number of different data points, layer values over it, think about the impact and different outcomes, and
Mm-hmm.
then just put a lot of focus on making a choice being more important than anything else, because otherwise you do nothing. And ultimately, knowing that you can never be certain what the outcome is going to be. So just get on with it. So,
Yes. I love that. Yeah.
what
So
about you?
real. Well, I think yeah, I can tend to, weigh pros and cons or, things like make my lists, right? Looking at it from different directions. But what really gets me there in the end is quiet, stillness. Like getting away from all noise. Um, Sometimes it's like literally doing some breathing exercises or some type of meditation or what people might call meditation. Sometimes for me, we have a trail around we live on 10 acres and we have this trail around our house and a lot of trees, a lot of nature, a pond, just which I love. And so I'll take some laps and just kind of open myself up to divine guidance or nudges or um, so I look for a spiritual, what probably we would label a spiritual knowing or a spiritual nudge or something that, really, really leads me where I think, where it thinks I need to go or whatever. And with the other thought being, like you, I don't want to get stuck in not non-decision or non-movement. And so I relax myself by saying no decision is a permanent decision. And, so if I get clear today and I move on this clarity, and then 3 weeks later, oh, I think I want to pivot. Okay, now I'm going to
Yeah.
pivot. For whatever reason, that was what seemed the best at the time. Now I'm going to pivot. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And it comes back to what we were talking about earlier. So you're making me think that clarity is a kind of it's not a long-term thing. It's an iterative, repeated process. So what you've just described is almost like, imagine that you're walking on a beam that's, let's say, 10 feet long, and you're gonna make a choice every 6 inches about clarity. Not you're not going to walk the whole length of the beam,
Right.
because something might happen along that way that really throws you off balance because of your perception at the beginning, which something has changed. Um,
Yes.
yeah, and you talking about spirituality, I can't remember when we first spoke, not on this call, on our previous call. My grandmother used to say to me, you need to follow your nose. And I translate that into following my values now.
Mm-hmm.
But what you said about being silent and the spiritual bit, although I'm not a religious person, so this is more inward than some sort of divine message or anything like that. But I
Yes.
do find that clarity comes with kind of trusting in something.
Yes. That inner knowing, the truth within.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether you're familiar with this. I'm not, so you might be able to share something. But actually, so this morning I was thinking about how much there is online about, to be organized, you need to do these to-do lists, and then you need to categorize things and da 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 da. And
Yeah.
I woke up early this morning and I found myself chatting with ChatGPT, and I said something like, uh, "Does the brain perhaps have greater ability to be an organizer than we give it credit for, or no?"
Oh,
And I'm
interesting.
wondering the same thing about, when we make choices and decisions,
Mm-hmm.
because when you get that feeling about the right thing to do, your
Mm-hmm.
brain has probably processed an awful lot of information to
Mm-hmm.
get you to that point, but you just don't know what it's done, right? Do you think there's anything in there?
I think there's so much in there. And to think about, too, that the brain holds our memories, our history. I call it the file in the back of our head, that it's also referencing whether we consciously are aware of this or not.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So there's a whole lot in there. And some of it, is louder than other things that might, you know, uh, make us go one way versus the other. So yeah, I think there's a whole lot there. And I love that you asked GPT that question. What was the answer, by the way? Can you tell me?
yeah, yeah. It said yes, and it
Yeah.
talked a lot about neuroscience and
Mm-hmm.
everything. But then it also said what you've just said, which is that our brain has a tendency, for instance, to focus a bit too much on what's urgent. And
Mm,
so we feel compelled to deal with stuff that perhaps is not the best thing to spend our time on at this time.
mhm, mhm,
So it was interesting. And actually, you talking about the filing cabinet in the back of our head.
mhm.
In my first book, we tell a story about a fire, um, and the lead fire officer being in the building with his team, and
Mm.
he's had decades of experience and been in many similar situations. But in this situation, he's not able to work out the source of the fire. And
Mm.
eventually he got freaked out and got his team out of the building just before the whole floor collapsed. And it was
Ooh,
because the source of the fire was in the basement. And if he hadn't made that choice to get everybody out, everybody would have died.
wow.
Now, to your point,
Yes.
you might say that he was lucky, but I've got a feeling that he was processing all of those hundreds and thousands of hours of experience and coming to the
Yes.
conclusion that there was something dangerous. And I guess we'll never be able to prove that one way or the other, but I've just sensed that we don't understand our brains as much as we will in the future.
Yeah, I think the capacity it has is far beyond what we even know at this time. And I wonder if he had that, just suddenly in his mind told him, get everybody out. Like he was inspired, move,
Yeah,
go now, you
yeah,
know, and that's clarity, right? That's clarity that actually even saved lives. So that was an absolute yes kind of feeling, and that's the kind of feeling I want people to have when they're trying to get clear. Is like absolute yes, we must leave this building now, and wow, we see why, right? Because the floor dropped after they got
yeah.
off.
So that's a really powerful way to lead into the next question, which is how could more clarity improve the world?
Oh. Well, I think, I think there's a lot of untapped potential in people and in organizations, you know, everywhere, all over the world. And one of the reasons I think is we get either stuck in how things have always been done, or these are the rules, this is the way, or we don't realize our own value, our own um, abilities. And so, if we could get clearer, could see a bigger, wider picture of what can I do? What can you do? What can we do? What can we do with them? How are we all connected? Oh my gosh, I think the potential is amazing for a happier, healthier world all the way around. But you could
Yeah,
say, you know, dictators throughout history were very clear what their mission was, right? And very clear about how to carry that out. I mean, clarity isn't necessarily, you know, always things that we like people to be clear about, right?
that's a great point because yeah, I think the dictator's example is wonderful because you're right. Clarity is what they've got, right? And then they just go get it.
Yeah,
Same with maybe some criminals. So,
yeah, sure.
clarity
Mhm.
is often there in negative situations or people with not good intention. And
Yes.
it strikes me in the world that where we're lacking clarity is in why we're here. If I
Mm.
think about, for instance, money and
Mhm.
fame,
Mhm.
these things seem to have hijacked us, and
Right.
people go chasing it.
Yep. That's
Whereas I
true.
can't remember which of the Greek philosophers said our purpose of being here is fulfillment and happiness. That's why we're here. And collectively, actually, that I think that's another dimension. So mm collective clarity is so much more powerful than individual clarity.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I've heard it said, our purpose here is to experience freedom, growth, and joy. I've heard it said our purpose here is to become our best selves.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's all very much interesting and all about clarity, right? Who am I? Why am I here? Like,
yeah,
who am I? Why am I here? What am I to do? What is my calling? Where am I led to serve? What's what's my reason for being here? Or
yeah,
maybe there's many or whatever. Another thing when you were mentioning clarity about things that we don't always like, it really, I was a licensed mental health counselor for 25 years. And so I had like suicide assessment training and so forth as part of that mix of skills and so forth. And one of the symptoms of someone who is suicidal, a lot of what we think is, oh, they're depressed, right? They're out of options. They stop engaging in activities or in their relationships. They may give stuff away, things like that. But one of the big signs to look for is when they look happy and relieved. And the reason is because they're clear. They've become clear they're going to do it. And suddenly they feel this burden has been lifted. And so what happens a lot is you have this depressed person who's shown this profile of chronic depression, chronic disengagement, all these things, and people worry about him and worry about him and trying to love on him, trying to help him, help him. And then they suddenly see them feeling good, looking like they feel good. And they think, oh, finally he's come around. Finally she's come around. And then they kill themselves. And they're like, wait, what? But she was
yeah,
doing so much better.
yeah.
He was feeling so much better. Well, they had clarity. They had clarity.
Wow.
And they
I can
yeah.
add to this, and because this has been your area of experience and expertise, I'm sure you'll find this fascinating. A colleague of mine, who I saw in October, met her for the first time in person at an event, and it was a few days, so we were spending time in small groups and stuff like that. Anyway, she told me that year, or maybe it was the year before, I can't remember. She got off a flight to receive a telephone call that her sister had taken her own life. Her sister had taken her own life. But
Wow.
then she went on to explain that her sister had left really detailed notes and explanations to everybody about the
Wow.
reason for her choice.
Wow.
And the lady who was sharing the story with me was saying, we all felt so much better because she had done that, and we respected her decision.
Wow.
Um,
That's
so that was
incredible.
clarity, right?
Yes. Oh, and what a gift she gave, leaving them those notes, the understanding, so they didn't have to go into guesswork, which is what a lot of people have to do when they've had someone suicide in their life. They go, why? What was so bad, or what went wrong, or why? How come I didn't see? How come I didn't see this coming? And could I have stopped it? And what did they mean? And what did they want? And yeah, so what a gift she gave them, and I'm glad it helped them find their peace after.
Yeah. And that's how, when she told me the story, I was like, why am I feeling like this? Because it's a tragic story. And yet I feel that it was done so well. And I admire that. It's like, Alan, come on, how are you feeling like that?
It's an interesting conversation, and I respect all sides of beliefs around this. But I can honestly say that as a trained, when I became a trained mental health counselor, the teaching was do anything you have to save somebody from suicide. It was like, this is where you pull out all the stops, right? As a counselor, because you don't want them to do that. It's kind of like in the medical field, doctors
Yeah.
are taught, save the
Yeah.
life, whatever, shock them back, do this, do emergency this, emergency that, because as if death is bad or suicide is wrong, or, like we should resist those things, right? But as I've evolved and as I've grown and as I've known people to suicide, and I've, it's interesting that we resist it so much, and yet we also don't enjoy knowing people are in chronic pain. Like, like I ran a counseling center for many years back in the day. And we had a lady client. I can see her face, like she's standing right in front of me. She was not my client, but she was my colleague's client for years. And she just ongoing struggle with depression, just horrible, just never, the medication never worked. I mean, she tried different, combinations of medications throughout her adult life. It was just awful. She ended up, it, I mean, she was homeless for a while. It was just a mess. Her life was a giant struggle. And she was a sweetheart. We loved her. She was a sweetheart. But at the end of the day, she eventually, a lot of suicide attempts, a lot of times we thought, oh, we're on high alert on her behalf. And, when she actually finally did it and completed it successfully. And I thought to myself, she's at peace. Finally. Like, the struggle is over for her. I mean, yes, we grieve her. Yes, her poor parents, who have to live their rest of their lives grieving their child. It's not a happy day, but yay, she did it. But it was this layer of, she doesn't have to try anymore to manage this earthly life with this horrible disease that she has, that she never could get regulated. And no matter what she did, she tried all kinds of things for decades. I mean, this was decades of this. So, I just, there's more than one way to look at everything, right? So
Yeah,
it's,
we've come round full circle, haven't we? Because
I
I'm
know.
thinking now that there are probably people watching and listening to this that might struggle with what you just said, but you've
Yeah.
got experience of probably hundreds, if not thousands, of cases, whereas most people probably only deal with one or maybe two, something like that. And so it's quite tricky to kind of understand that expert point of view, I'm guessing. Um, but the other thing that comes forward for me is in society is if we're not willing to do anything about it and make the situation better, it seems very arrogant to be saying to people, you shouldn't do that. You should find a way if the help and the support's not there.
Yeah, if it's not there, it's not working or whatever. And no, by sharing that story, I certainly don't want to invalidate anybody's feelings around suicide, especially if they're grieving someone. That is horrendously difficult for most people. It's one of the hardest kinds of grief to be faced with for most people.
Yeah.
Um, I don't mean it in an invalidating way at all, and I'm not saying go kill yourselves, everybody, if you've had a bad day or a rough life. That isn't my message. My message is that there's a lot of ways to look at things, and for that woman, I think that was clarity in action that got
Yeah.
her at last to a place of relief that in the earthly life, for whatever reason, did not come.
Yeah.
Did not come with teams of medical support, psychiatric support, mental health support, friends, family, everything you can imagine. And it never got a relief. But I'm
Mm.
hoping and trusting that did.
Mm. And this feels like a really good natural time to draw the values jam to a close. And the thing that kind of pleases, I don't know if that's the right word, but I love it when we strike strong emotion in these conversations. And that's what you've just done. So thank you for that as well. There is a final question, and that is what are you encouraged to do differently about clarity as a result of this conversation?
Wow. I think I want to honor it more, the process of getting there even more, and not be as impatient with a lack of clarity, but rather enjoy the journey to the gift of it, enjoy the journey to the gift of it. Because that's the the real life happens in the journey of everything, right? Not just the arrival. So I think that's for me.
And and so can I push you a little bit on that and ask
Yeah.
you, when will you have a chance to take a first baby step towards what you've just described?
Well, let me think on that. Well, I'm in um, as I've dove into this kindness principles company and that work, which has been new to me in the last year or so. And being this entrepreneurial spirit that I am, I have about 100 ideas that download on a regular basis. Oh, I should do that. Oh, I should do that. Oh, shiny object over there. Oh, shiny object over there. In terms of ways to find expression for this in my work and ways to be helpful and ways to deliverables and features and different things. And I can get so excited about so many things. Like, oh, I should write the kindness book. Oh, I should get the curriculum done. Oh, I could become a speaker and speak only on kindness. That kind of wee all over the place. So I think my next best step is to go, what feels best or most important right now? And let that be my journey right now, because I don't have to do everything at once.
Absolutely.
I don't have to do everything at all, but rather just, again, honor that journey. Be okay that I don't know the answers to everything yet or how it's all going to look every which way. And just be with it where it is.
That's brilliant. And well, I've got a request before I share with you what I'm going to do differently. And my request is please put on your list when you're making your choices the K20 summit in May in at Fort Myers in Florida, because I'd love to meet you there. Mine is, it's weird actually, because of all the things each of us could have said, mine is very similar to yours. And when I asked you the question before you answered, I thought, do you know what I'm going to be saying? Because I bang on about clarity a lot. I pay a lot of attention to it for
Mm-hmm.
myself and also other people. We need to be clear about this guy, that sort of thing.
Yes.
I'm going to start adding for now,
Oh, for
clarity
now.
for now,
Yes.
because in a minute it might change.
And it's okay if it
Yeah,
does.
yeah,
It's
that's
okay.
right.
That a life that has, I mean, clarity is a gift. It's lovely because it provides such a, yeah, it that's one of the first things people are looking for when they come for coaching. Historically, I need to get clear on this, my
Yeah.
career, where I want to live, this relationship, who I am now, what I should do after retirement, when I should retire, what, should I have children or not? I mean, it's people want clarity. And
Especially now, like we were talking earlier, because the world is going so fast, it's like a whirl, isn't it? And so if you can slow that down and make it clear, actually somebody, I don't know whether you've heard this metaphor or not before, but the snow domes that you get,
yeah,
so you turn it upside down and then the snow inside.
yeah,
So
yes,
he described meditation, and I'm kind of stretching the metaphor a bit into clarity, as imagining that you do that with a snow dome, and then you're able to pick out one snowflake and focus on it and not see
Oh,
the others.
wow. That would be incredible clarity.
Yeah.
There's a lot of snowflakes going around in that, but that's life too, right? There's a lot of snowflakes going around all of
Yeah.
us, right?
So Cindy, brilliant values jam. Thank you for, like you said at the beginning, somebody like you, why wouldn't you have chosen clarity?
Exactly. I don't know. The numbers came to me and that's where it led us anyway. That was a
All
great
right.
conversation. Thank
Thank
you for
you. Take
having
care.
me. Thank
Cheers.
you.
Bye.